Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. We're starting today's video with a story that proves karma isn't just real, it runs on gasoline and starts at 6 a.m. sharp. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. My neighbors were nightmare partiers, so I made sure they never slept in again. 4 years ago, I did something I dreamed about since I was a kid. I built my own house. Not just any house, a brand new home in a freshly developed neighborhood less than 30 minutes from my hometown. It was supposed to be perfect. Quiet streets, friendly neighbors, and the pride of owning something that was truly mine. For the first few weeks, it was exactly that. I unpacked my things, set up my furniture, and even planted a few shrubs in the front yard, imagining how they'd look in a few years. Then my next-door neighbors moved in, and that's when the dream started to unravel. At first, I didn't think much of their loud gatherings. Maybe they're just celebrating the move, I told myself. Housewarming parties, meeting new friends. It'll settle down. It didn't. What started as occasional weekend get-togethers quickly turned into full-blown ragers 3 or 4 nights a week. Music thumped so loudly that my windows vibrated. Shouting, laughter, and the occasional sound of breaking bottles carried straight into my bedroom, even with the windows closed. And the next morning, their lawn looked like a landfill had exploded. Empty beer cans, plastic cups, and food wrappers littered their yard, and since we lived in an area with frequent breezes, half of that trash ended up in my yard. I tried being patient, I really did, but after the third sleepless night in a row, I snapped. I started calling the police. At first, they'd show up an hour later, long after the worst of the noise had died down. The parties would quiet for the night, only to start again the next evening. After a while, the dispatchers recognized my voice. I'd call, and before I could even finish explaining, they'd sigh and say, "We're sending someone." I filed complaint after complaint with the HOA, but nothing changed. The fines they issued were clearly just a cost of doing business for my neighbors who treated them like a minor inconvenience. Then came the breaking point. One Saturday afternoon, I was trying to enjoy a rare moment of peace when an ear-splitting screech of feedback blasted through the neighborhood. I nearly spilled my coffee. I rushed outside to see my neighbors setting up a full PA system in their backyard. Not just a Bluetooth speaker, an actual professional-grade setup with microphones and amplifiers. Why? Their excuse? A children's birthday party. Now let me be clear. We don't live on sprawling acreage. Our backyards are tiny. The houses are close together and sound carries like we're in an echo chamber. There was absolutely no reason for a PA system unless their goal was to ensure the entire city heard their kid blowing out candles. The noise was unbearable. Music, screaming kids, and a grown man shouting into a microphone like he was hosting a damn concert. This time, I wasn't the only one fed up. Half the street called in noise complaints. When the cops arrived, I watched from my window as the officer spoke to the neighbor. And what did Mr. Party House say? "I don't care." Just like that. No apology, no remorse. That was it. I marched inside, fired off one final HOA complaint, and this time I didn't hold back. I threatened legal action, not just against the neighbors, but against the HOA itself if they didn't enforce their own rules. Miraculously, it worked. The fines got heavier, the warnings got stricter, and for the first time in months, silence. Now, here's where things get delicious. See, after 4 years of sleepless nights, I'd learned a few things about my neighbor. 1, he was a construction worker. 2, his schedule was brutal. Early mornings, long hours, physically exhausting work, which meant weekends were his only time to sleep in. And that's when inspiration struck. Every Saturday, like clockwork, I wake up at 5:45 a.m., I brew my coffee, I stretch, and then at exactly 6 a.m., I fire up my lawnmower. Not just any lawnmower, mind you, a gas-powered beast that sounds like a chainsaw mixed with a jet engine. And where do I start mowing? Right outside his bedroom window. Sometimes, if I'm feeling extra motivated, I'll pause there for a while, maybe check my phone, maybe sip my coffee, all while the mower roars directly beneath his window, ensuring that any hope of sleeping in is obliterated. Does it make me a terrible person? Maybe. Do I care? Not even a little. 4 years of parties, 4 years of trash, 4 years of I don't care. Now, Saturday mornings are my time, and I savor every single minute of it. I don't blame you, but I find it odd there's no provision to prohibit lawn mowing before 7 a.m. as a part of a noise ordinance. And our second story. I'm disabled, and they kept trapping my car. My spouse and I rent one half of a duplex that was originally a single-family home. The property has an attached 2-lane driveway and a split 2-stall garage, meaning each unit gets 1 lane and 1 garage space. The driveway is long enough for 3 cars, but a public sidewalk cuts right through it, which means no one should be parking below that point. Blocking the sidewalk is a no-go. Our neighbors, however, don't use their garage for parking. They've filled it with storage, so they always have 2 cars parked in their half of the driveway. That means when they have guests, those guests are supposed to use the street, but instead their visitors often act like my driveway is a public parking lot. When they first moved in, their guests would occasionally park in my spot. It was annoying, but when we politely asked them to move, they were apologetic, and the problem seemed to stop. That is, until recently, when one particular guest started showing up twice a day, every day. It seemed like they were picking up and dropping off one of the neighbors, but rather than just stopping for a quick second, this person would sit in my driveway for 10 to 15 minutes at a time. At first, I let it go. 10 minutes isn't the end of the world, but it kept happening. There were several times when I was trying to leave for work or coming home, and their car was just sitting there blocking me. What really started getting to me, though, was the thought of an emergency. I'm disabled. What if I needed to leave immediately and this random car was keeping me trapped in my own home? After a few weeks of this, I knew I had to do something. Asking them nicely wasn't going to fix it. They already knew they weren't supposed to be there. The next time it happened, I decided to handle it differently. One morning, I was leaving for work, and sure enough, there they were, idling in my driveway like they owned the place. Instead of confronting them directly, I pulled my car out of the garage and parked directly behind them, blocking them in. Then I pulled out my phone and called a tow truck. I didn't have to wait long. As soon as the tow truck pulled into the driveway, the guests realized what was happening and bolted out of their car, waving their arms. Hey, wait, that's my car, they shouted. Oh, I know, I said, leaning against my own vehicle, but it's in my driveway and I need to get out. They were flustered, clearly not expecting this. I was just waiting for a few minutes. And now I'm waiting for you to leave, I replied. Funny how that works. By then, my neighbors had come outside looking alarmed. They tried to plead with me to stop the tow truck, acting like this was some harmless misunderstanding. Come on, is this really necessary? One of them asked. It was just a few minutes. I just shook my head. I've asked nicely before. I'm done asking. The guests ended up having to pay the release fee, and judging by the look on their face, they weren't happy about it. I figured that'd be the end of it, but later that day, my landlord showed up. Apparently, my neighbors had called him, complaining about what I'd done. I expected to have to defend myself, but instead my landlord shrugged and said, I told them if they block your driveway again, I'll start eviction proceedings. I blinked, not expecting that level of support. Wait, really? Yeah, he said, they're violating the lease. If they can't respect your space, they can find a new place to live. After that, the problem disappeared. The guests never parked in my driveway again, and my neighbors, who used to at least throw a forced hello in my direction, stopped speaking to me entirely, which honestly was a win. Now I can come and go without playing a daily game of who's in my spot today. I would have done the same. Our OP tried to resolve the issue peacefully, but sometimes it's easier for people to pretend that they don't understand anything, up to such results when your car is towed away. And our last story. Karen expected me to pay for a road I never asked for. It all started when a developer in our area went bust, leaving a handful of plots behind and next to my land for sale at an attractive price. Naturally, this meant new potential neighbors were on the horizon. I wasn't thrilled about the idea, but at least it seemed like the new neighbors would have good access to the land, and I thought it might be a quiet and uneventful addition to the area. Then one day, a woman walked up to my land, introduced herself, and told me that she'd bought the land behind mine. She explained that she was planning to build a road along the border of my property The reasoning was that the guy who owned the plot next to mine didn't want the road going through the middle of his land, but was willing to allow it on the border as long as he could use it as his driveway. She said it was going to be a shared road, and since my land was along the border, I'd be expected to go in on it. I wasn't completely opposed to the idea. At least it was better than having a road cut through the middle of the property. I thought, why not help out, as long as there's some benefit for me too? So I agreed to the plan, but with one condition. I wanted to make sure I could use the road whenever I needed access to the other side of my land. I made it clear that I wasn't interested in paying for the road. I was only agreeing to allow it to be built. The woman, who I'll now call Karen, seemed fine with that. After exchanging contacts and agreeing on the general terms, things seemed to be going smoothly. I figured it would be a straightforward agreement with everyone sharing the costs and using the road when needed. A few days later, I received an email with an attachment outlining the plans for the road, including the projected costs. The plan was for everyone involved, the three of us, to pay an equal share of the expenses. What? Then I saw a reply from the neighbor next to me. The neighbor, who I'll call Bob, wasn't happy with the idea of splitting the costs equally. He explained that he would only use half of the road and would therefore only cover part of the cost for the section he'd use. I was a bit confused by this. I replied to the email, stated my position clearly. I told them both, I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding, but I'm not paying for the road. I'm fine with you building it and using it as long as I can use it if I need to access my land. My only condition is that I don't pay. That meant Bob, who would only use half the road, would cover 25% of the cost, and the rest would be split between Karen and the neighbor behind me. Not long after I sent the email, I received a call from Karen. The moment I picked up, she was already upset. You're being selfish and greedy, she snapped. You want to use the road without paying for it? Do you have any idea how expensive this is going to be? She went on about how I was a jerk for not wanting to pay and how unfair it was that I expected to use something others built without chipping in. I tried to explain calmly that I wasn't asking for anyone to build the road for me. I just wanted to make sure that if the road was built, I'd be able to use it if needed. She kept yelling at me, calling me all sorts of things, and accusing me of taking advantage of her and Bob. Honestly, it felt like she was more concerned with my refusal to pay than the actual fairness of the situation. At this point, it became clear that Karen was not going to let it go. She was furious, and no matter what I said, she wasn't going to back down. To her, I was the bad guy for not agreeing to pay for the road, even though I had clearly stated that I wasn't opposed to the idea of it being built. I just didn't want to pay for it, especially when I wasn't going to be using it regularly. In the end, I decided to stand my ground. I wasn't being unreasonable, and I didn't think it was fair to expect me to cover costs for a road that I wouldn't be using. Karen continued to complain, but I stayed firm in my decision, hoping that eventually she'd realize that the situation wasn't as simple as she made it out to be. And so the drama continues. Karen and Bob are still working out how to handle the situation, and while I don't know what the final outcome will be, one thing's for sure, I'm not backing down. Sometimes standing up for yourself, even in the face of someone's anger, is the best way to protect your rights. They should be happy that you allow it to build the road. It's not your problem that the place behind yours is not having a direct connection to a road. Karen had many possibilities to figure out this problem before she signed the contract. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.